What's up everybody, Matt here, and today I'll be talking about my top 5 Superman stories. So in this video I'll explain what my top 5 choices are and just talk a little bit about them, maybe about why I like them and everything, and yeah, we'll just go from there. So I'm kind of cheating on this entry. Yes, this is a Superman series since it takes places in the pages of Superman and Action Comics, but the title hero doesn't come in until near the end of the series. The series follows Superman's arch nemesis Lex Luthor as he scours the world for Black Lantern energy in the wake of Blackest Night and Brightest Day. The series does an absolute fantastic job at giving us a look into the mind of Lex Luthor and just his complete obsession with becoming a godlike being, which at the end of the series he eventually does. And it leads to some really cool scenes between him and Superman as he delves into Superman's mind, and he actually finds out that Superman is Clark Kent, and it leads to a really cool scene where he like realizes it, and then he sort of thinks of himself as kind of stupid that it was in front of him the whole time and everything. It was really cool. This story also features some really cool side characters, since Lex has to go on this journey throughout the Earth to sort of discover all these different Black Lantern energy points. So it takes him to Gorilla Grodd's territory, it takes him to the Arctic where he actually ends up fighting with Deathstroke, the person he hired to sort of protect him on this journey as well. And he also has a Lois Lane robot, since, you know, he likes Lois Lane and everything. He obviously can't have the real Lois Lane, so he makes a robot, and the robot's actually pretty cool because it's like designed from Brainiac technology, and eventually it turns back into Brainiac technology and leaves him once he becomes a god and everything. So there's some really cool other characters, and it's not like big characters either. It's people like Catman and the Secret Six and stuff, and Suicide Squad, and, you know, Gorilla Grodd and everything. It's not like big heroes and everything, which is really great. It's also done by one of my favorite DC artists, Pete Woods. He does some absolutely amazing work. I love the costume he draws for Superman as well. It's kind of hard to explain. It's like how a movie costume would be, sort of with the raised S and everything, and it looks like a costume. It doesn't look like blue colored spandex skin sort of thing. It looks like it has some weight to it as well. But yeah, I really enjoyed this comic, and what's really cool is that this one actually dovetails into the final pre-Flashpoint Superman story, which is the return and reign of Doomsday, which sees the Superman family like Eradicator, Superboy, Steel, Cyborg Superman, Supergirl, all of them trapped on like this weird ship by this guy called Doomslayer, and they have to fight like Doomsday, who clones himself and everything, and it's just so weird and really great. It's like total sci-fi stuff, and he like adapt to them now. He can't be killed by them and everything, and eventually the Eradicator actually becomes a Doomsday since his body's dying, so they upload his mind into a body. And that was one of the stories that actually got sort of left once, you know, Flashpoint kicked in and the New 52 started, and it was one of the ones that I really wanted to see continue. I thought that was a really great story, with Superman having to try and find out how to save his friend. I thought that was really cool. But yeah, it's a great Lex Luthor book as well. The way they portray Lex Luthor in this is like how I'd want to see him in the movies. You know, he's calculating, he's cold, he's like obsessed with stuff and everything, and he doesn't stop until he gets what he wants, basically, and he's willing to kill anyone in his way to get it. Probably my favourite modern version of Superman's origin. Superman's secret origin shows Clark as a young boy who has his powers manifest, and he begins helping people in and around Smallville as Superboy. Also tagging along in this adventure is a young Lex Luthor who stages his abusive father's death in a bid to claim his insurance policy so he can head to Metropolis and start a newer, better life. We also get to see Clark's first appearance in Metropolis, and his first appearance as Superman in Metropolis. Of course, it garners the interest of the American government, and, you know, Lex Luthor and Metallo is involved, and Parasite is involved, and it feels really like how a movie should have been written, basically. And, you know, seeing Superman come out and save Lois for the first time is like fantastic, and it felt like it was right out of like one of the Donner films or something. And it really, as I said just before, it should have been the base plate of the new Superman films. It felt like this was Jeff Johns writing like his version of a Superman script, and it really could have been a Superman movie. Of course, there's some stuff in this book that you actually have to omit from it, like the Legion of Superheroes stuff where Superboy goes with the Legion of Superheroes into the future and everything. Obviously, you can't have that in like an origin movie, but it works in a comic. But yeah, this is one of my favorite origin stories. Everyone always talks about like Birthright and all that, and they're pretty good, but I really like this one. And it's, Jeff Johns writing coupled with Gary Frank doing art and everything, so it looks fantastic. Superman looks a bit like Christopher Reeve and everything, and we get the Clark Kent, who's kind of like bumbling, but also he can be serious as well and everything. And yeah, it's really great, and it's cool because it's not like Superman fighting a massive alien threat like coming down from the skies and raining hell all over Metropolis. He's like fighting Metallo, and then later on he fights Parasite, when we actually see Parasite's origin in this as well as Rudy Jones and everything, and it was really great. And Lex Luthor is really great in this as well, and it's a fantastic origin story. This is one of the many awesome arcs that were in the pre-Flashpoint Superman Batman comic. In this arc, Superman realizes that kryptonite has been spread too much all over the world when, while saving some actors from Livewire, he almost dies from kryptonite a prop man thought was fake. Enlisting the help from Batman and other Justice League members, Superman scours the earth for every trace of kryptonite, sealing it in a vault and pitching it into the sun. I love the story so much because, the reasoning behind Superman doing this and going after all this kryptonite after so much time. Since kryptonite hurts him, he can't afford to be hurt when there's so many people on the earth calling for his help, and he can't afford to be out of action for too long. They also touch upon the fact that the kryptonite is literally pieces of Superman's homeworld, and makes him really sad that something he loves and misses so much can and will hurt him and kill him. It's just so great that they touch upon that sort of stuff. Also, the art is fantastic. Shane Davis on art is absolutely fantastic drawing Superman. He did the Earth 1, Volume 1 and 2, I think. Don't think he did Volume 3. But yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. It's really cool, like, characters like Aquaman has a really cool issue in it. We get, obviously, Batman helping him, and he develops, like, this lead-lined suit for Superman, which looks really cool. We also get this really cool Doomsday type creature, which is a Doomsday that has the spikes on him are actually kryptonite, and we find out that this guy is a US soldier who he's really patriotic, kind of like Captain America sort of thing, like really patriotic, wants to do his part for the country and everything. So he undergoes all this procedures and everything to become sort of this weapon to stop Superman, and they get into a big fight and it absolutely decimates Smallville. And Superman, the arc after that and the end of this arc, he's like seen rebuilding Smallville and everything, which is really cool. Little story arc about Superman and Batman's relationship, as well as Superman's relationship with kryptonite and all the different types of kryptonite. So it's really cool. Red Sun comes from the insane mind of Mark Millar, who turns Superman into a communist in this fantastic Elseworld story. Even though Superman isn't raised on a farm by Ma and Pa Kent, he still keeps the values that they, or in this story, Stalin instills upon him. And they, uphold the truth and justice and everything, that sort of stuff. And he doesn't want to be part of Stalin's own agenda for the Communist Party. He wants to save everyone, including the Americans, who in this story are like a failing country. Every other country sort of becoming part of the Soviet Union, while they're still like holding out because of like their, I guess, stubbornness, and they don't want to be proven wrong and that sort of thing. He finds hope in everything, this Superman, and even all of Russia's enemies, including like Bizarro, which is created by the American government, which I'll get to later on. What's even better is that this book features characters, such as Lex Luthor, who works for the American government in creating weapons, such as Bizarro, who in this book is actually inspired by Superman to be good. In the story, he is there to fight Superman. He's like a failed clone, but they send him out anyway because he still has powers and everything. There's a nuke about to go crash, and he basically pulls Superman off it to like sort of save the Superman and sacrifices himself. So he literally becomes Superman because of what he's seen this Superman do, which I thought was really great. Another hero who gets the Elseworlds treatment in this is Green Lantern and the Green Lantern Corps in general. And in this one, Hal Jordan is an ex-POW. In his mind, he's created like prisons and stuff and everything. So he's the perfect candidate for the government who found Abin Sur's ship, and they're trying to figure out the ring and everything, and they've got it to work, and they need someone to sort of guide them. So they give it to Hal Jordan, who creates the Green Lantern Corps, which is just a bunch of pilots that he gives Green Lantern construct armor to, and it looks really cool. But Superman absolutely decimates them like almost immediately. We also get Batman as well, who is a Russian resistance fighter, and he saw his parents be killed by the Pete Ross of this era, who is the head of the KGB, I believe, and so he becomes like this bat-themed terrorist, and he actually almost kills Superman. He traps him in a Red Sun bunker while Wonder Woman is like used as bait and everything. And Wonder Woman eventually breaks free of her lasso. She actually breaks her lasso, which pretty much breaks her mind, and then Batman kills himself without being captured and everything. The Cold War in this story never really happens. It's not a Cold War fought with like nuclear missiles like it was in real history. It's one that's fought with superheroes, with all these different superheroes like Lex Luthor is creating. He creates like Doomsday and Atomic Skull and all that, and to try and stop Superman, which they don't, because it's Superman and he's got like all these powers and everything. And it's just really cool to see all this stuff. And as I said before, Wonder Woman's in this, and she factors heavily in this as she represents the Amazons and sort of joins Superman in defeating Batman, and she becomes kind of like his wife, but not. They're like kind of friendly because of like the relations and everything between their both countries and everything. But yeah, the story is set over many years, starting like in the 1930s and 40s and everything, while building up into deep sci-fi stuff right at the end, where it's revealed that Krypton is actually a highly advanced Earth in the far future, and that Lex Luthor's lineage ends up being Jor-El and Kal-El and Lara and all that. That's why they have L at the end of their names, because as the future goes on, they don't need like last names anymore. They just need like a letter, and their letter is L. And he sends baby Kal-El back into the past, and he lands in 1938 in Russia. And so it's like a sort of continuous stream of like going back in time and writing the future and everything, which I thought was like, when I first read that, I was like, I didn't really understand. I'm thinking, oh, what's going on here? And then I like reread it again, and then I'm like, holy crap, that's insane. That is so cool. And it's something like Mark Millar would do, and it's sort of like Grant Morrison-esque as well, which is why I really like this story. And I also like this story because even though Superman's a communist, and he represents something that we've been told wasn't particularly very good, he still is Superman. He still wants to save everyone. He still finds hope in everything. He's still just the good guy, saving people from trains and falling Daily Planet globes and stuff like that. That's what I really like about it. My absolute favourite Superman storyline today is the 1 year later tie-in story Up, Up and Away. 1 year later was a storyline which saw books such as Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman take up after Infinite Crisis, where in the Superman one we saw Superman without his powers after his fight with Superboy Prime and Earth 2 Superman. During this year, Clark has stepped up his game as a reporter, working on stories to expose both Lex Luthor and Intergang. As Lex pretends to be a man of the people, he begins using a Kryptonian sunstone to try and take over the world. What's so great about this story is that even without his powers, we see Clark still taking down bad guys, with his Daily Planet connections, and he's putting papers out on Intergang, and it gets so far that Luthor actually has him dragged into an alley and beaten up. Like, that's how far it goes. Like, he's rattling cages and stuff like that, which I think is really cool. And it still doesn't deter him as well. Like, he gets beaten up and like threatened he's going to be killed, and that Lois is going to be killed and everything, and he still doesn't give up. Like, that's Superman right there. This story also involves lesser known Superman villains like Prankster and the Puzzler, who were used by Luthor as sort of like a smokescreen as he stole kryptonite to infuse it into his sunstone, so he has something in case Superman comes back, because he's still worried that Superman might be coming back, or he's like out there hiding. And Superman does come back. Clark eventually gets his powers back, and it's rocky to begin with. Like, they're starting to come back very slowly until he eventually does get them back and is able to stop Luthor and then repair Metropolis from the damage they caused in their fight. Absolutely fantastic story. Everyone should be reading this story. Is by Jeff Johns, Kurt Busiek, Pete Woods on art again, another all like fantastic people writing this book. There's also a follow-up story called Back in Action, which I'll talk about a little later on, which basically sees people doubt that this is the real Superman that's come back, and he has to be put through kind of like a test, like when these aliens sort of come and start taking stuff from Earth. So that's a really cool pick-up story from there as well. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. Great, characterization of like Luthor, of Clark without his powers. We see him what he's like without his powers. He's basically just Superman, but like in like a sports jacket, which is I really enjoy it. I really like it. It's so damn good. Some honourable mentions that didn't exactly make the list, but I still think are absolutely fantastic books are Back in Action, which is the follow-up to Up, Up and Away, and sees Superman arriving back on the scene, after being gone a year. People are starting to doubt that it is the real Superman, since last time this happened, we got, Cyborg Superman and Steel and all these people that were pretending to be him, and he has to sort of prove that he's the real Superman. And while this happens, a group of space auctioneers, I guess is the best way to put them, come to Earth and start like collecting stuff, and Superman has to stop them, and there's like they start collecting heroes and everything. Absolutely fantastic story. The next is Secret Identity, which is a Elseworld story, and this is set in our real world, and it's about a kid who is named Clark Kent, and he's ridiculed for it because he's named after a superhero in a comic book, how gay, how nerdy and everything. But he actually ends up developing the powers of Superman. He becomes Superman. He gets a costume and everything and starts saving people and everything. The government try and get a hold of him, and obviously he doesn't let that happen and everything. He also ends up marrying a woman named Lois, and they have kids, and their powers are passed on to these kids, and they become the Supergirls of the world. And then there's more powers like from other people that start spawning in the near future and everything. And it's an absolutely fantastic story about family and everything. And also it's got that real world aspect, so like what would happen if a Superman was in the real world, and also a little bit fantastical and everything. Next is Superman, the Greatest Stories Ever Told. This is a type of omnibus type thing that had basically the greatest stories of Superman at the time of its printing, and it's a bunch of like old comics and stuff, and there's some really great stuff in there. There's the old school 80s origin from the Man of Steel of how he became Superman. He saved the plane in Metropolis and everything, and then he got the costume and everything. Really cool. There's another really cool one that shows Superman's descendants in the far, far future, and they're like spread out across the galaxy. Really cool. Next is The Last Son of Krypton, which incidentally also follows on from Back in Action, and sees a Kryptonian pod land on Earth, and it has the child of Zod in it, and Superman takes this child under his wing, names him Christopher Kent. They bond and everything, and Superman sort of becomes this father figure for the boy until Zod arrives, wanting his son back, and sort of starts wreaking havoc on the Earth, and his son sacrifices himself to trap Zod and himself in the Phantom Zone. Last arc is the New Krypton arc, which Superman gaining the bottled city of Kandor from Brainiac and growing it to the size of a planet, and it inhabits the same space as Earth, only on the other side of the moon, so it's sort of the same orbit. And yeah, the Kandorians and the Kryptonians on there come to Earth and everything, and Supergirl's parents are part of them, and they're there in peace and everything. And then there's obviously people who want to go to war with them, like General Sam Lane and everything, so he gets his daughter Lucy Lane to be a superwoman, quote unquote, and yeah, there's a big storyline there. There also sees a storyline involving Reactron killing Supergirl's parents and her hunting them down. It was absolutely fantastic. It spawned like multiple different books off of it, thanks to Jeff Johns, James Robinson. It spanned like a year and a half or something. Like, it was insane. It was massive art, and then led into like the War of the Supermen. It was absolutely fantastic seeing Superman interact with his people and actually become part of his people. He joins Zod's army because he isn't particularly accepted on Earth anymore. So he goes and joins them, and yeah, it was a great arc. I really enjoyed it. Well, I hope you enjoyed my top 5 books as well as my honorable mentions. Tell me, what are your top 5 books of Superman or any real hero really? I'd like to hear what you guys like about certain heroes and everything. So yeah, comment down in the comments section.